Good evening, class. My name is Shavonna Welcher. Today I will be talking about if a daycare facility does harm to a child. I'm going to show you some pictures of what happened to my son while in childcare. I'm going to cover his face for protection. I'm going to show you what happened, and then I will discuss everything. So if you can see, this is a bust forehead. And this is the outcome of what happened afterwards. So the question is, does the daycare does harm to a child? For my persuasive speech, I will be talking about any daycare facility and if the daycare does harm to a child. This is a very touching topic for me because my son is 5 years old. He was in the same daycare since he was, his old daycare. He was in there since the age of 3 months. The daycare center decided to close for personal reasons. So she was told that there's another daycare that's opening right down the street, which worked out fine because it was still within driving distance of me going to work. All of her employees from the old center went over to the new center. My son did really well for the first year, had no problems, everything was fine. Started noticing staff was leaving and he's being transferred from place to place within the center. He was 3 when he started, and he moved very fast to the 4-year-old class because he was too advanced. One particular day in question, I went to pick my son up, and my son said, "Mommy, my teacher cursed at me." I was like, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what did she say?" She said, "Get your back on the gate." So I was like, "Okay, well, let me talk to the daycare owner." Took my son out of the car. We went back into the center, and I talked to the director. And I told her, I said, "My son said that one of the teachers cursed at him." So she was like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "I don't think he would make this up." She went and talked to the teacher in question, and the teacher did admit that she did curse at him. I told her, I said, "Well, I believe in second chances, and I believe in, her keeping her job. She probably was having a bad day, and to her defense, she had a headache, and she wasn't feeling well. So the teacher was terminated on the spot. Not long after that, about a week later, I got a call from work telling me that I needed to come pick him up from daycare. There was an accident. I went to pick him up. No one had answers for me. So I was very upset because my son had a bust forehead and they had to call the ambulance. But when I got there, the ambulance was never called. They did an incident report, but my son was bleeding from the forehead and all he had was a tissue on his forehead. Took my son to the emergency room. Once again, I asked the director what happened. No answers. So being that I work downtown Charleston, and it was hard for me to find another center to take him to. Another incident happened right after that. She hired another teacher, and this teacher was new. I didn't know who she was. She never addressed to me who she was, but my son didn't feel comfortable with her, and he said, "Mommy, she's mean to me." And I was like, "Well, what kind of things she would say to you? Get over here, don't do this," or she'll grab him real rough. So I was like, okay, I'm going to give her a chance. One particular day, I got a call saying that the teacher dragged him across the floor. So I asked the director, I said, "Well, why would she drag him across the floor?" And it was witnessed by another parent. And the parent yelled and said, "Why are you dragging this child across the floor? That's an assault on the child." Automatically, I told her, I said, "This teacher needs to be terminated because that's assault upon a child." She gave me all kind of excuses. She told the staff not to speak to me. I told her that I would be taking him out of the daycare because I'm not going to have anybody handling my child in such a harsh way. She explained to me how good of a person she is. I didn't know this teacher at all. This teacher never addressed herself to me as to who she was, if she's going to be teaching my child or not. I say that to say this. The teacher kept her job. I reported this incident to DSS licensing service, and I reported the center. Come to find out, this daycare has had multiple, since opening, reports brought against them. I obtained an attorney, and I also let the attorney know what happened. They didn't have any questions for me as to how my child got the bus head. The teacher cursing him out. The teacher dragging him across the floor, 6 feet across the floor by his hands. He's an innocent child. No one should never lay hands on a child. Their bones are still fragile and they can easily be broken. So my question to you is, does daycare do harm to our children? I say yes, because if your kids don't tell you, you will never know. I feel that all daycares needs to have cameras in it for not just their protection, but for the child as well. So if my child had never told me, or if that parent had never came to me and told me after many speculations and asking many people, and I kept getting a runaround, I wouldn't have never known. I wouldn't have never known what my child was going through. I just always know that my child never wanted to go to school. And that's a problem that I never had. My child was in school since the age of 3 months. He's 5. He's now in a Christian learning environment where he learns about the Bible every day. He was in this daycare since last month. He's doing very well. Never had a problem since he went there. And he's on good terms with the facility. And him and the director have a good relationship. I explained to her what happened. My child since then has to go for counseling, to see a therapist, because this was something tragic that had happened to him. So I say, if you know anything that's going on with your child or the facility, please report it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my persuasive speech. Good night.